Call to order. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you hear me with the mic down? Ron, can you hear me? You do. Can you hear me now? Okay. Can we have roll call, please? Stephanie Weiler is out of town today. Haley Kieser. Here. Anthony Reynolds. Here. I'm here. And Debbie Claus.
Here.
Dave Mark. Here. And the student representatives are on vacation. Are there any agenda adjustments for tonight?
I have two agenda adjustments. Under B2, resignations, and under B2, we're going to ask for permission to employ party to approve from the board, and then under resignations, we received one today.
We will get to it. So, can I have a motion to approve the agenda adjustment? Mrs. Kieser, motion. Do I have a second? Second. No abstentions. Any discussion? All in favor of agenda adjustment? Any opposed? Okay, agenda adjustments are approved. Approval of the minutes. Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on July 8th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. I have a second.
Second.
There are no abstentions. All those in favor? Any opposed? I move to approve the minutes of the special meeting on July 15th. Do I have a second? Second. There are no abstentions. Any discussion? All those in favor? And none opposed. I move to approve the special meeting on July 29th. Do I have a second? Any abstentions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Completes approval of the minutes. Moving on to proclamations and presentations. Committee acknowledgement. The chair is absent tonight, so the chair will address any public comments from last meeting during the September committee meeting. Are there any other acknowledgements? Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Holyoke. He's doing a great job, and all of his helpers. And there's a lot of kids that help him, even coaches that are helping him. There was 14 rec athletes that made the states, so they'll be racing in the states this weekend. Excited to go.
Did you have anything? Other acknowledgements? Okay, moving to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on agenda items, contribute information that may be of interest to the school committee, or ask clarifying questions. Please wait to be recognized and identify yourself before speaking. This is not a time to register complaints or promote a personal agenda. Please remember that you may not identify any person by name or job function. First person for public comment tonight is Mr. Greg Newell.
Hello, Greg Newell, Hermon. I see that the Hermon internet policy has finally come up to this committee. Even though we have been under a federal investigation for over a year on this issue. As some of you may or may not know, we are under an FCC investigation for supposedly selling school internet access, which is illegal according to federal law. I can see why the FCC would think that with such a policy in place and towers and antennas on the schools. I noticed that it has come full circle with two people, Superintendent Dern and committee member Mr. Reynolds, who were on the same committee and approved and allowed this to happen originally. At that time, you all mutually agreed and thought it was a good idea to allow outside entities to have access to your internet, some for free, while others were paying a fee to use the school's internet service. It's still unclear who was truly profiting from that income, all while this school district was receiving federal money to pay the monthly internet bill. I hope you and everyone know that these actions and decisions on your watch are the reason our district is under federal investigation. It's interesting that some found the need to return, and I hope to try to take responsibility for your actions and not conceal the problem. I hope you recognize the legal nightmare you've left for our community, and it's affecting the students, the teachers, and the taxpayers. The question then becomes, if you rescind this policy, how will you monitor the network and be sure that all those who are using the internet for free, such as those on Patton Drive and Route 2, etc., how will you ensure they're no longer using the internet? I still see long-range wireless transmitters on the towers attached to this school and the superintendent's building. Removing the long-range wireless transmitters from the towers would show that this committee truly wants to move in the right direction and do things legally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Next up is Mr. Ed Ford.
Good evening, I'm Ed Ford in Hermon. First, on April 20th, the school board, chair signed an agreement with the outgoing superintendent. A couple months ago, I mentioned that this amount of money was $65,000. I just saw it in the cost center. I'm just curious, I had a couple of questions that, number one, if we'd be able to get an explanation on why that money was paid out. This was a resignation, and the superintendent's contract said, once you have a resignation, off you go. There are no other issues there. So I'd like to know what it was that the chair saw there, because quite honestly, she made the decision by herself without any input from the school board, and there was no vote. Number two, I'd like to see, were there any claims at that point made against the employer from the outgoing superintendent? And number three, I'd like to know why that uncontested unemployment was granted on this agreement, this resignation agreement of some nature. Number two, I'd like to just ask about you're going to look at the Code of Ethics this evening. The last piece that's on there that talks about not taking notes, records, or a form in any manner. I'd like to know where this came from. Not state law. Main school management doesn't even ask for this. All they ask for is no public record. If somebody's taking notes or some sort of recording, those are not public records. So I'd like to know just what was the genesis of, it looks like S. I'd just like to know where that came from. Again, it's not even in Maine statute. And there are times where students and employees will go into executive session with the board. Will they be held to the same standard? You're going to ask employees to go in with some sort of issue into executive session. Are they going to be required not to take any notes of any nature or bring anything to write in with them? I'd really like to see if that is clearly what the intention was. And so, going on that, the state law, talking about public records and proceedings, this is right from state law. Legislature finds and declares that public proceedings exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. Keep in mind, executive sessions are right in the middle, public proceeding, and it's followed by a public proceeding. So it's not like out of the way where, all of a sudden it's not part of it. It is part of the public proceeding, even though the material in the executive session are not public. It is the intent of the legislature that their actions be taken openly and records of their actions be open to public inspection and their deliberations be conducted openly. Again, I'm not saying that material that's in the executive session should be examined. That's not what I'm saying. But also state law talks about, number one, about executive session. Yep. Not to defeat purposes of this subchapter, an executive session may not be used to defeat the purposes of the subchapter that I just read. So those things, I'd just like to know where that came from at that point. Thank you for your time.
Next agenda item is item 7, personnel. Do we have any public comment related specific to personnel actions in the agenda? Okay, first section is A, resignations with the agenda adjustment of the third person.
Yes, we received resignations from Vanessa Crump, our Special Services Secretary, Brooke Dupuy, Hermon Middle School foreign language teacher, and Scott Adams, a bus driver.
Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding resignations? Okay, B, employment. If we could do this as a batch, I move to approve the PAGS, Hermon Middle School Education Technician positions. Do I have a second? We'll do that as a batch. Second. Abstentions. I broke that out specifically, Deb, so that the middle school and PAGS were, so you can abstain from that vote.
There is a high school one.
Yes. So 2 abstentions.
Yes.
Any discussion regarding their employment? All in favor of the employment of those 3 ed tech positions? Any opposed? 3-0. Okay, next, I'd like to move to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the special services secretary. Can I have a second for that? Second. Any abstentions? None? Right, you took the superintendent, so it includes the high school.
Right. Yep. So we're going to abstain.
Are there any discussion regarding that hire of that employee? All in favor? Any opposed? No. The adjustment for number 2, move to allow the superintendent to tentatively employ new hires prior to committee approval for the month of August. Do I have a second for that? I'll second it. Prior to the conclusion of for the month of August. Any abstentions? Mrs. Durham, would you just like to explain that quick, how we got there?
Certainly, we still have a couple of positions open. We would like very much to fill those. If we have qualified candidates that come to us within the next couple of weeks, we'd like to be able to tell them, yes, they have the job, then we'll bring it to the school committee. We prefer to do that than to tell them they have to wait and have them start somewhere else.
Is there any discussion?
We usually do this every year at this time. Oh, certainly.
Those in favor? No opposed? Then if we could just go through the co-curricular, or co and extracurricular positions. Does anybody have any questions regarding those? It's really not a vote needed, it's just to acknowledge those at the high school department heads. And then our Hermon Middle School staff facilitators. And PAD staff facilitators. class advisories for the high school other co-curricular, the middle school other co-curricular, the IEP coordinator, mentors, recertification, athletics at the high school, and athletics at the middle school. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding that? Moving on to old business. Is there any public comment regarding old business, the agenda items of old business? You guys can hear me, right? Okay, so excused absences for school committee members on 8 July. Mr. Hart and the student representatives were absent. I move to approve Mr. Hart and the student representatives approve their excusal. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
There's no abstentions, so all in favor? And none opposed. B, reading of policies. I move to move to committee the second reading of BCA Board Member Code of Ethics. When I looked at what was in our packet, the BCA that was in our packet was in error. It was an old BCA that included, and what brought my attention to it was a reference to school board rather than school committee. And then I found other items that we had not discussed. And I brought that up to Mr. Durham, and that's why there's the corrected version that's given to us tonight. But the BCA that went before the subcommittee was the wrong copy of BCA. So therefore, I move to send BCA Board of Member Code of Ethics back to the subcommittee, policy subcommittee. If we table it, it just tables it for us. It's to send it back to the subcommittee for their review. Any abstentions? No abstentions? Go ahead with the discussion.
May I just explain, that's what happens when you have your awesome assistant not in the office to help you sort out which one is new, which one is revised, which is old. It was not Mrs. White who did that. But you can see why we miss her.
Are there any other discussion points from the community? Okay, all those in favor of moving the policy BCA to the policy subcommittee? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, number 2 is move to approve the second reading of amended GBP-R, earned paid leave. This is making corrections based off the legal requirements, correct? I get a second. I move to approve that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any abstentions? Any discussion? All those in favor? Item 10, new business. Do we have any public comment regarding agenda items listed under new business? And Mr. Ford.
Just had a quick question, Ed Ford. If you move to approve this first reading, does it automatically go back to the policy committee prior to the second reading?
Yes. You did it before I could set my 3-minute speaking timer. Mrs. Hermon.
First, I just want to say how much I appreciate the audio. It is tremendously better, so thank you very much for that improvement. Second, I wanted to speak to the policy being discussed, JIB, pregnant students. I just had two observations when I read the policy. One, I believe it's section A, second paragraph, it refers to parents and guardian. I find that language unclear, and maybe it could be clarified as to when parents and guardians are or are not involved in discussions. Secondly, I noticed that, or I didn't notice, that the guidance counselors are at all mentioned in this policy. And speaking from personal experience as a mom, that was a vital link to ensure that a child who is in a current situation and is trying to reach graduation and outcomes of whatever, having that person in there to help guide exactly what can be adjusted long-term and what can't be adjusted long-term. I'm not saying in the moment, but like the long-term picture of getting the child to where they want to be. I think it's very important to have the guidance counselor mentioned in this policy. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, item A under new business, Maine School Board Association Annual Delegate Assembly. Mrs. Keiser, I know you did that last year. Would you like to do that again this year? I think it's, our experience was that, you know, the resolution and adoption for the delegate assembly can be very important if we use it. And is that just an area that you'd like to be involved in this year?
If anyone else is interested, that would motion to that.
Anyone else is Tony?
Sure.
You look. So I move to, or I nominate Haley Keiser to be the delegate for the MSBA Annual Delegation Assembly. Do I have a second? Any abstentions? There's no abstentions to that. All in favor? So there needs to be an alternate. Tony, I assume you're not. You want to be the alternate?
Yes.
I mean, either one of us can do it.
Last the alternate, I guess, yeah.
Could be the alternate.
Yeah.
So I nominate Tony to be the alternate for the MSBA Annual Delegation Assembly. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Okay, reading of policies. We've got policies 1 through 3 that are GCF related for our superintendent. And I just want to say that by our vote tonight, we are acknowledging that we have reviewed these policies. It's a requirement when we're doing the hiring process for the superintendent that we review the policy. So I just wanted to state that as a function of your vote tonight, you're acknowledging that you have reviewed those policies. So these are first readings. Would anybody move to approve the first reading of GCF professional staff hiring?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Any abstentions? Do we have any discussion regarding GCF professional staff hiring? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? I move to approve the first reading of GCFB, recruiting and hiring of administrative staff. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any abstentions? Do we have any discussion regarding GCFB? All those in favor of GCFB? There are none opposed. I move to approve the first reading of GCFBR, recruiting and hiring of administrative staff, administrative procedure. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Any abstentions? Any discussion over GCFBR? All those in favor? Can I have a motion to approve the first reading of KFD, Hermon.net Community Freenet Acceptance Use to rescind that policy?
I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll move that Bill here second it.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Any abstentions? Any discussion?
Yeah, you just want to explain why we're removing this policy?
You don't use the Hermon.net free net connectivity.
There is no longer Hermon free. It does not exist.
And so, I guess my only concern is for, as it was stated during public comment, how do we ensure that the open net that we currently have, that people aren't accessing and have the equipment to do so? How do we ensure that without something protecting the policy?
Well, it might be, I don't usually respond to public comments at this point, so I'm not sure if you want me to have Mr. Bridges come down and address that, or do we address it next meeting? But I can tell you, Hermon free net does not exist anymore. It is not. Some of the antennas are still up there because no one is under one roof to take them down.
That would have been caught during the network segmentation that you put in the report, correct, Mr. Bridges?
Correct. I'll be putting it up on the hours that we turn on.
So the dishes and such, the micro antennas are turned off.
They're still up there. We're looking into ways to take care of that over hours.
Okay. Thank you.
All those in favor of rescinding KFD? Any opposed? I move to approve the first reading to amend GCSB, use of social media by school employees. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any abstentions? And any discussion on it?
Okay, so I have some concerns with this policy. Starting off with the freedom of access, I guess my question is from, thankfully, Mr. Noel recorded the meeting, the policy meetings right here, and I wanted to get better clarification on the future use of the school's website. I thought I heard you talk about turning off commenting, and so before I speak to that, I guess I want to hear you clarify what that plan is. It was very hard to hear you, so is that the plan or the thought process behind how our social media pages are going to work for the school?
It's a recommendation that came from main school management, which is based on Hermon and Woodson. And the purpose behind that is because there was a national lawsuit where people were commenting, and at least one commenter, or commentator, or whatever you want to word it, was frequently making remarks that were not conducive to what they were trying to do with that webpage. And so the administrator of the page chose to turn that individual's comments off. That is a violation of First Amendment rights, because if the page is open to comments, then it's open to everyone's comments. And so the recommendation is that we use our web pages as outgoing information portals for people so they can see what is going on, but to lessen, by all means, or as much as possible, the opportunity for someone to be disgruntled, and rightly so, if they're not reading the same as everyone else.
I thought I heard you say. So with that, I guess I have a few concerns. Freedom of access is very clear, the statutes are very clear about making sure that people have a right to communicate, to be involved, to be heard. Maine passed a law, LP 870, in June, talking about and making sure there are protections for the freedom of speech and to stop the frivolous lawsuits that some schools and other places are taking out against those who comment on social media. That being said, one of my biggest things that I advocated for is to improve communication and transparency and turning off the ability for parents to often praise teachers and praise and say good things about our school and give feedback in live time on social media. To turn that off, I think would actually is going the opposite direction of what we're trying to want. I'm certainly an advocate for it. Having our community be involved and feel that they're involved and feel that their voices can be heard. Most of them don't want to stand at that podium. I don't know anyone who enjoys going down there and talking. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. So social media is one of those platforms where parents can chime in and be heard as a community. So I'm very fearful of supporting turning off the community's voice through social media, and I actually feel that will, even if you do it, if you want to use the word inclusively, so everybody, so nobody can talk, I think we're setting ourselves up for future lawsuits by cutting off that line of communication.
When we're talking about this, so when we talk, I'm only talking about the comments underneath the post. So,
Yeah.
if a parent or a community member has a response to a post that a principal, I'll just use a principal, but a member of the administration posts and does not put open to public comments, if a parent wanted to respond to that administrator, they can still do it through private message function, right? It's just not publicly seen.
Yes, but they have a right to be heard, they have a right to say, well done, so-and-so teacher. I mean, they have a right to express concerns as well. That is our First Amendment, and we need to protect that and take that seriously, whether it's on social media or not.
I don't disagree with you, but the concern I have is that the negatives will force administrators not to post information because they don't want to have to deal with the negative that happens. And as a result, you'll actually have less communication. So it'll be less likely to want to post some of those things and receive public negative comments.
Either way, they have a right to express themselves and to be heard. And I don't spend a ton of time on social media, but I can hardly see that if the administrator posts something positive, that the community would obliterate them for something positive. I haven't personally seen that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying if it does, it's the person's right to do so. It sounds like you do support turning off the comments.
I do support turning off the comment if it is a school-based social media page and they announce something and it's meant to be a public communication to inform the community. The intent isn't to receive feedback, it's to give the information out. And if you've got a question or a concern, then that can be sent via private message or other email or other communication that we already have, with parents already have with the administration. So putting that out there to give we want to give forums for open communication, but at the same time, the intent isn't for the administration to get bashed on Facebook if they publish something, if they have a question, ask it, and I'm sure the administration will answer it. But we all too often see a negative comment that I don't think is really called for.
I don't agree that we often see a negative comment. In fact, even when I've seen what someone made, when I've seen administrators post hard information, I actually see parents saying, thank you for communicating
going to say, I agree with you in that we do not want to shut people off at all. We certainly do want to respect First Amendment rights. We are not shutting off First Amendment rights in that they can still email the administration, pick up the phone and call the administration, put on their own pages. If you see something that you want to comment on, you can put it on your own Facebook page and say, you know, congratulations, or I heard this, or I saw this. We absolutely want to continue to keep communications open. The reason this is in front of you is because it was recommended by Drummond Woodson, who are our attorneys, who was passed on to us through main school management. But as you know, it will go back to your professional discussions committee, and I would think that they're going to take all of your comments into consideration and try to figure out what is the best direction. You know, I have to agree, most everything I've seen regarding the schools is positive, but it's trying to avoid that one negative that could put us into a bad place. So it's a recommendation from our attorneys, from main school management, and what the committee decides to do with it is certainly up to the committee.
Sorry, excuse me,
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
Just-
The public comment had already been closed.
Okay.
In this section.
All right,
Thank you.
don't worry about the kids' social media and their programs.
So one of the other things that brought me to is when people are communicating or asking me questions, that's a question that a lot of other parents often have that gets answered through their comments. So it's a recommendation by an attorney because it's the path of least resistance for them, and it covers them, and it just kind of diminishes the need to. But overall, I see this as the opposite to be true, and I see they are problematic, especially when it comes to athletics and sports. We are always communicating on there, and I just see it being a disaster. And if you want to talk about community outcry, you're going to see a lot more parents having outrage over not being able to communicate with their school in the platform that they usually do. That's typically positive. I could be wrong, but I personally utilize the sports pages constantly, and I appreciate that I can comment in the praise and staff in real time. So.
Are there any other comments? Okay, let's go to the vote to move to approve the first reading of first reading of the amendment of GCSB, social media. It's all those in favor?
One more question, I'm so sorry. One more question.
Yep.
But nothing in this policy actually clarifies the fact that we were talking about turning off. Did I miss that part? It doesn't talk about turning off comments, is that right?
It does not say
Specifically. You are correct, it does not specifically say turn on comments. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Next, I move to approve the first reading to adopt JIE, pregnant students. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any abstentions? Any discussion? Okay, without any further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? Good. Moving to reports. Does anybody have any comments? Are there any public comments regarding reports under item 11? Mr. Jordan, are there any comments you have regarding the administrative reports?
No, but I would like you to be thinking about a date that we might have a joint meeting with RSU 87. Mr. Hermon and I met today. We used to meet with them Friday, at least once a year, just for a meet and greet, get to talk with their committee members, they get to know you. So I'd like you to think about when you might want to be able to do that. The other thing I'd like you to think about is moving our school committee meetings to the library. The acoustics are nicer in a smaller room. More importantly, I don't like these lights in my face. With the number of guests that we've been having, usually the last couple of meetings, about a dozen, we can accommodate that very well in there. They still can record the meetings in there, and I just would like you to let me know whether or not that's something you're interested in. And the last thing I'm going to mention is the professional discussions committee, which I mentioned to you before. We have been in violation of that negotiated agreement and the way that we need to discuss policies prior to bringing them to the board. I would like us to return to a professional discussions committee, which includes, according to the negotiated agreement, representatives from all three schools, your three principals, the superintendent, and 2 school committee members. And I see no need for us to publish that agenda ahead of time. It's truly, it's an after-school meeting that was always meant to be a meeting after school with professional staff. It's not going to in any way eliminate the public being made aware of the comments coming to the board. As you know, they see the first and second reading, but it would free up some time from the people who are trying to arrange these meetings. It would certainly free up time from Mrs. White trying to get agendas published for what's technically a staff meeting. And so my intent is to move forward with a professional discussions committee that will meet at 3:30 in the afternoon, because that is when teachers are available. And I don't want to ask them to come back at 5 or 6 o'clock at night after they've worked all day to come to a meeting to discuss proposed policies. It won't change anything as far as your work.
Thank you for that. I agree with you that there needs to be that committee, and it's my understanding that that would be happening. What it sounds like you're trying to do is have that be also wrapped into the policy committee, which does need to be a public meeting so that the community can have their voice heard or share. And so I'm hearing both can be true. You can have a discussion with the policy committee, and the teachers can be aware of the policies and bringing those things forward as they should. But we do need to be in compliance with having our policies be open to the public. Those are our public meetings. I mean, you can ask Brittany Kelsey, the FOA ombudsman, who will tell you 3 entities, yourself and 2 other staff. Those are avoidable meetings, and the requirement is, and she's very clear, and I can forward you. That's helpful. So are you saying that you're going to, in addition to that, have policy committee? Or
No. There would be one meeting that would be the policy committee meeting. And people are welcome to attend it.
Well, but you just said they would be after school meetings,
They are
staff,
after school.
staff without an agenda, so it would lessen the load and all of those other things.
There will be an agenda. It will not necessarily be published 48 hours in advance and posted on the internet. There will be an agenda, because we need to know, as well as anyone who might want to come to those meetings, that there is no legal requirement for a policy subcommittee.
FOIA law is very clear when it comes to public meetings and the timeline and the agendas. So it's 3 persons, it's not 3 elected officials, it's 3 governmental persons. So
I don't think we can make that.
Well, it is, she just said there was no law, there is a law that it clarifies. The policy committee, I see what's happening and it's concerning. We can't be talking about sites that are not, we're having a policy committee, they're going to be posted, and they're going to be public, while also saying, we don't need that people chiming in.
It's an open public meeting for them to attend. There's no requirement to provide a platform
Public
for
comment.
public comment during their professional committee meeting.
So we just worked the last 2 years to advocate for public comment to be at subcommittee meetings, for those meetings to be recorded, which is get to.
We have public comment here with this meeting is fully intended for the public.
But it's already a first reading when it comes here. That's been the issue. That's been the issue, is that the work is supposed to be done in subcommittee. You're not supposed to come here and still be editing. You can, but it's not ideal. So the public isn't getting a chance to see the policy, see information, and share their voice and have it edited at the subcommittee before it comes to us. You're stripping away that layer. It's just,
I don't think we're stripping away the layer as we looked at it. I think we look at where is the work being done. The work is being done by the administration and by the people who work at the school. So by having it that is in conjunction with the school, it makes sense. It's open to the public. It's one of their professional development or professional discussion committees. To have a second committee only complicates it. So if we want to have full teacher involvement and get the fullest view of policies, then I think that's the best way to go.
I don't disagree with it either. My concern is that we're saying we're not going to have them have an agenda posted 48 hours in advance or posted on the internet so people know in advance. That's what I'm hearing.
They are scheduled well in advance.
We're changing the dynamic of the subcommittee.
We have, but the dynamic of the subcommittees have been changed.
When did we vote on that?
We haven't voted on it, but the very dynamic of the subcommittees have changed.
So is that going to be true for other subcommittees, that we're going to change the dynamic of the technology, and I'm going to invite committee members to be part of that again?
I think the timing of technology is intended to be a work session that includes members of the school department. So the criticism of they are right after school and therefore the public can't attend them. It's not that the public can't attend them, they can attend them, and they are encouraged to. But the intent is to get the professionals in the school department that have all the information at the table and trying to come to a meeting that meets the needs of a dozen citizens, and then we have 24 administration. There has to be some working function there, and that's the point of this meeting on these nights, so that we can have full resident involvement. But to actually get to this point, I think we need to cater more towards those that are actually doing the work. And I think that's where we're going with this, is we're catering to those that are actually doing the majority of the work.
I would have a concern about the professional discussions committee going over policy, looking at it, making recommendations, then going to a policy subcommittee and having changes made, because then we have to go back to the professional discussions committee, the people who are responsible for enforcing those policies and work with those policies every day. So the idea is really to get and make sure we're making it as convenient as we can for those people. Again, if the public wants to attend those meetings and has input, I don't think anyone objects to listening to it, but I can't have both going on, and by your negotiated agreement, which you have all done with your faculties and all of your employees, say that we will have professional discussions committee.
And I understand that. I'm not opposed to the teachers being involved. I'm saying that it is the school committee's job, that's their sole purpose. hire the superintendent to draft and work on policy. That's not assigned to teachers. They're welcome to have a voice there. Absolutely welcome that. I want their input. I'm saying that it is the school committee's job, obviously, who drafts most of it. And we need to have a platform that's transparent, so that if parents want to chime in, they can be aware it's posted. That's all I'm asking. That both can be true, and I support that. What I don't support is saying it won't be posted and that the community won't be aware. And that's what I heard.
Mr. Reynolds?
Nobody's trying to hide anything on anybody. No, but I just want you to feel, I mean, this is, that's why we have a first reading and a second reading. There's plenty of time to go over all the stuff. We've already sent one back to the committee. So I just don't see what the hang-up is here, where there is a first reading and a second reading.
The hang-up is when it comes to a first reading, then there's really no change. It's different too, when we have a board that's willing to send it back and to work on it. We haven't necessarily had an agreeable board that would do that, so that's been part of the problem, okay? So, I'm not saying anyone's trying to hide anything, I'm trying to improve, everybody being involved and feeling that way.
Okay. Any other comments on the superintendent's report, Mrs. Durham?
No, thank you.
Are there any other comments about the reports that were provided?
I have a question about the changing location. Is that something that we're going to vote on, and will we need to change the setup of the library for having meetings in there?
It was an idea that's been proposed. I think it needs to be discussed with the chair. I'm not prepared to make that decision of moving to the library tonight. I think the chair needs to be fully involved in that. I'm not opposed to it. I support it. And I don't think that the location necessarily needs to be voted on as long as it's a acceptable location. Any other comments regarding the reports? Go ahead, speak.
Thank you. My other question was, we had voted last year, I believe it was, about recording the subcommittee meetings, and because they are reportings and they're public meetings, and it helps for people who can't come, maybe to the parents who can't come at 3 o'clock. Is that something we can do going forward in the compliance with the school board did vote to record the subcommittee meetings? Thank you.
The only committee we've had in the last month has been the professional committee, which would be policy. Are there any reports or comments you'd like to make regarding that any further?
No.
Okay. Next is possible future agenda items, just for everybody's schedule. Next meeting-wise, our next full school committee meeting is on the 9th of September. The curriculum, facilities, and technologies meetings are on 5 September. And the policy and finance committees are on 3 December. For the specific times, please look on the web page, they are posted. So, starting Mrs. Keiser, do you have any possible future agenda items in which committee?
Well, I've continued to ask for a subcommittee policy for almost 2 years now, but I don't even know at this point now, it sounds like I think we need to have the discussion. Because it sounds like they're going to be different, and we need to really understand what are the committees, how are they going to function, what are the expectations. It seems like that's changing.
I don't think their function's changing, but if we can have a discussion with it when we have the chair here as well. So I don't think we're prepared to have a discussion over the different committees.
Yeah, we just don't have a policy that outlines the
Okay, so
subcommittees.
you asked for a subcommittee policy. Mr. Reynolds, do you have any?
No, all set.
Ms. Wallace? Do you have any future agenda items?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Hart?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any further, but I will pass on. Next, we're to approval of warrants. I move to approve the warrants as listed. Do I have a second? Second. we have any abstentions? Is there any discussion of the warrants that are as posted, or as listed? All those in favor? Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Second. This person second. Any abstentions? Any discussion? Those in favor?